7:40 in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, to get the other side of the political divide in Guyana, we should be joined in a short while by Anil Nandlall, former Attorney General and executive member of the People's Progressive Party, the PPP, because for a long time it was PNC versus PPP. And you wanted raw, was people of African descent against people of Indian descent in Guyana. And remember, we highlighted this many months ago, the whole issue of 1953, when the British said that there's no way that Cheddi Jagan would be allowed to become the chief minister in Guyana because he was a communist. And from that point onwards to the CIA intervening and so on, it's become an issue. In the meantime, West Indies have gotten another wicket. Jason Holder has taken a second. That's Ollie Pope, who's gone caught behind of the bowling of Holder. 2 wickets for Holder, 3 for Shannon Gabriel. England batting first are now 87 for 5 on the second morning of the first test against the West Indies in Southampton. Let's hear now from Mr. Nandlall, who joins us via Zoom, former Attorney General and PPP executive member. Mr. Nandlall, we've heard from Aubrey Norton of the PNC, who is part of the APNU and AFC, and basically he's saying that it is the CCJ that has been shifting the goalposts, that the APNU AFC have been following all of these prescriptions according to law, and that it is a situation where the PPP Civic have been complicit in an undermining of the process. What is your response, sir?
First of all, let me thank you for accommodating me on your program, and good morning to your listeners and viewers. I had the misfortune of listening to Mr. Norton, and he has said so much and has disseminated so much misinformation in that short period. I don't know whether I can erase and address all the issues that he raised. We have to begin with who Norton is. Mr. Norton is a self-professed protege of Forbes Burnham, and the Caribbean knows that Forbes Burnham was the architect of rigged elections in Guyana. Norton is also not a lawyer, but you heard him propound upon profound issues of law about which he knows very little. The CCJ has pronounced, in every free and democratic society governed by a constitution like ours, the apex court, the judiciary, is the sole and conclusive determinant or determiner of all legal issues arising in that society. The CCJ has pronounced, whether we accept it or not, democracy and the rule of law dictate that you must accept the decisions of your court, especially the final court.
Before you continue, Mr. Nandlall, if you would allow me, is there any legitimate argument that could be put forward that the Guyana Constitution excludes the determination by the CCJ in this specific issue?
Certainly not. And the CCJ and the lawyers who were involved, including yours truly, dealt with the matter frontally. We embraced their objection and we examined the objection, and the court, in its detailed written ruling, examined their objection and rejected it. It's not that decisions in a particular category of cases are not unappealable to the CCJ. There is such a provision in the Guyana Constitution. But you simply can't contrive and make a case that does not fit into that narrow jurisdiction and then claim the protection of non-appealability which that article of the Constitution confers. So you can't, make up a case, bring it there, and claim the insulation and protective mechanism of a non-appeal from that decision. And that is what they did as part of their conspiracy to rig the elections. They made a case, possibly convincing the chief elections officer, use the guidance from this case and continue your perversity. And we are assuring you that that decision of the Guyana Court of Appeal is final. That is the level of the incompetence that they have displayed throughout their government and during the electoral process, because every single attempt of theirs to pervert and rig the elections have been uncovered because largely they are a bunch of incompetent people. So they misunderstood the law, they miscalculated. So when the matter reached the CCJ, they were like headless chickens trying to attack the court, publishing newspaper advertisements across the region, trying to threaten the survival of the court. Who behaves like that other than authoritarians and political dictators? If your case is fair and your case is accordance with the law, would you not welcome scrutiny and endorsement from the highest judicial tribunal in your country? Who hides? Only thieves and robbers and dishonorable people hide from scrutiny of any type, more so judicial scrutiny.
And Mr. Nandlall, I'm looking at
the frustration as another attempt of theirs being uncovered and embarrassing them worldwide.
And Mr. Nandlall, I'm looking at the headline of the Starbrook News this morning, their online edition, and its headline story is that Granger, meaning David Granger, the president, maintains claims of fraud, that's in reference to the election process, and says the matter now has to go back to GCOM. What do you understand, as you understand it, what happens next in this process?
What happens next has been clearly outlined by the CCJ, which is what our laws and constitution say on the issue. And no one is in doubt about it. We have been saying it all the time. It is they who rushed to the court and prevented the conclusion of the process in accordance with law. The process is that the GCOM must direct the chief elections officer to prepare his statutory report, obviously in accordance with the votes counted at the recount. They somehow think that a CEO, a chief elections officer, can lock himself up in a room, throw away the election results, and tabulate a results of his own. How they persuade themselves that that is logical and they can sell that internationally and nationally, I don't know. It's a level of insanity that you're dealing with that requires some kind of deep psychoanalysis. But the fact is that they think that the CEO can throw away the actual ballots of the people, the results of the recount, and can actually present his own report. And they're holding steadfast to that view. Though the CCJ explained clearly that that is not possible and conceivable. So, going back to your question, the CEO, as the CCJ said, must be redirected by the Commission to go and prepare your report as is required by law, using the numbers generated and the results generated by the recount process. Permit me here, Fazir, to say to you that you would appreciate that the elections themselves were observed by the Commonwealth, the OAS, the ABCE countries, the Carter Center, and the CARICOM. Every major observer team in the world, in this part of the hemisphere, observed those elections. The recount process also was observed by all these people. And all of these people have said in one voice that the processes were credible and that the election results must be declared and based upon the results generated from this recount process. The only voice in the wilderness, the only dissenting narrative is coming from this deranged cabal who sees the whole world differently and see their own story in their own light. It cannot be. It cannot be that the entire world is wrong and they are right. They have never been right before, as far as I'm concerned.
And therefore, Mr. Nandlall, if it is that the chief elections officer, Mr. Lowenfield, does not give the declaration, as you are suggesting, that is now mandated by the CCJ, what happens next?
Well, then we have to get, since it is a responsibility and a duty that the Constitution reposes in a CEO, and you have a rogue CEO who is refusing to discharge his constitutional mandate, then you will have to get another CEO. It's as simple as that.
And also, just for purposes of clarity, Mr. Norton pointed out in our discussion a couple of days ago, not just a few minutes ago, that Mr. Lowenfield was appointed Chief Elections Officer in the time of the PPP Civic. So any inference of bias on his part would be inaccurate. Would that be correct?
The PPP, first of all, GCOM, and that is the level of ignorance that you're dealing with. Norton did not tell you that GCOM is a constitutionally independent and autonomous body that conducts its own affairs in accordance with its own procedures and rules. Government is insulated from the functioning and hiring and performance and operations of GCOM. GCOM is like your Elections and Boundaries Commission in Trinidad. It's like your Judicial Service Commission in Trinidad. It enjoys the same degree of independence and autonomy. The PPP nor the PNC nor Northern Party can determine who the chief elections officer is. So yes, he may have been appointed under the PPP. And we don't interfere. We give everybody a chance. He's a Guyanese. Why, if the GCOM believes that he is competent to serve in that capacity, why not? Although I can tell you a different story, but I don't have the time as to how he got the job and whose bias it was that he got the job. But I don't want to contaminate. The fact is that he was hired to perform the functions of CEO, which he performed in 2015 and put Northern government into office without any quarrel with us. Because we accepted that we lost the elections, though we filed an election petition. Why? But he didn't do the perversity that he's doing now. And anyone who attempts to defend Lowenfield's fraud and Mingo's fraud are as guilty as these two individuals. The whole world saw what they have done. I don't have to convince anybody who is au fait with the facts in relation to the dereliction of these two people from their duties. And
Mr. Nandlall, just as we're trying as best as possible to understand where things go, where things move on from with this process that has been going on since December of 2018, essentially, with the no confidence motion that was passed at that time. If it is that there is resistance from the authorities, whether in the shape of GCOM, whether in the shape of Lowenfield, whether in the shape of APNU-AFC, what recourse does the PPP Civic have?
The monster that we are facing is that on March the 2nd, the APNU-AFC lost the elections, and they knew that from the night of March the 2nd. There's no doubt about that. Every political party knew the results, because you count it at the place of poll and you have your polling agents there. They are given a copy of the statements of poll, so you know. So they know that they have lost the elections. And what they have been doing since is one morbid artifice after another they have been trying to implement in order to defeat the will of the electorate, to rig the elections, and to steal the next government. So I guess that they have come this far. I am not sure whether they will stop. That's all that's going on, an attempt to steal the next government. They can varnish it in however they want. And whatever argument Norton can come and put to you, all that he's attempting to do is to thief the next government. I don't know how far more they will go, because we have been able to block them at every stage of the way. Now we have reached virtually at the end, and the CCJ has made all the clear pronouncements possible in the context available to them. GCOM can't claim a lack of clarity on anything anymore. I believe that to their credit, the CCJ with great clarity and great erudition outlined the laws of Guyana and the pathway forward in terms of bringing this process to an end. If at the end of the process, this rigging cabal, who are known to defy the rule of law, defy constitutionality, defy democracy, if they refuse to relinquish the reins of government, well, then we will have to up the ante of the struggle. And we are prepared to do that.
And what does that mean?
As I said last night on another program, this train is only going in one direction, and that is the direction of removing those who have lost the election from government and to install the government elected by the people. There is no other direction in which this train is going, and I want to make that very clear.
The issue is, though, it's heading in one direction, but will it actually reach the station of the PPP Civic being back in office? Because you may be stopped, derailed before that by the continued obfuscation as you see it.
No doubt they have tried to derail us. No doubt. The fact that we are 5 months away after the election with no government in place is because they are actively trying to derail us. So we are going to travel with the train and let's see where it takes us. But we are going to up the ante as is required to overcome the obstacles as they present themselves.
And Mr. Nandlall, we just have a couple of minutes left and we appreciate you taking the time to offer your perspective on behalf of the PPP Civic. Mr. Norton raised the issue of the ethnic insecurities. He claimed, and he said that there's evidence, and this has been documented, that during the time of the PPP Civic, thousands of young black males were killed in Guyana. And the inference being that this was under the watch of the PPP Civic. Are you fearful, sir, that this is going to reignite already existing tensions within the two major ethnic communities in Guyana? Your final thoughts on that?
My friend, the PPP is the largest and most broad-based and most multi-ethnic party in Guyana. We have won a seat in almost every region in our country. And not all the regions are occupied by Indo-Guyanese. Indo-Guyanese consist of some 30-something% of our population, and we have won over 50% of the votes at the elections. Do the maths and it will tell you. We have more Amerindians voting for us than they have Amerindians voting for them. We have more Indo-Guyanese voting for us than they have Indo-Guyanese voting for them. We have more Afro-Guyanese voting for us than Indo-Guyanese voting for them. So I don't know on what basis they're coming to this conclusion. But let me tell you, they have had that every time they are cornered, every time they attempt to steal an elections, and they are cornered politically, they play that race card. They play that race card. And they try to rile up the basic instincts of people. Norton, I listened to him when he spoke with you. He said the PPP judicially executed thousands of Afro-Guyanese. Judicially executed. This man is saying that we used our judiciary with the CCJ as our highest court since 2006, 2004. We used the CCJ and the rest of the court system to judicially execute people. Isn't that a deranged, demented individual with whom you were speaking? Stabrook News, you refer to Stabrook News. Stabrook News did a long, several editions of pages where they published the names of these people that they said were killed under the PPP government. And you know, some of them were knocked down on the road by traffic, by cars. Some of them died at the hands, they were killed by bandits. Some of them were policemen who were killed by bandits. And all of these people are thrown on the lap of the People's Progressive Party as people who were killed by the PPP. I saw he mentioned Gadraj's name, where he said that Gadraj accepted that he had to use criminal gangs. Poor Gadraj is now dead. If Gadraj was alive, he would have sued him. Complete. Mark Benchcup, for example, he said we innocently incarcerated Mark Benchcup. I was the special prosecutor. I was a young lawyer in those days. Mark Benchcup invaded the office of the president with a gang of unruly people, broke down the gate, destroyed buildings within the presidential complex, and caused the death of about 4 people and about 20 of them being injured. He's lucky that he was not charged and executed for treason and murder. He was pardoned by the People's Progressive Party. So, Fazir, I can sit down and speak with you for hours on these matters. It's just that we don't have the time to deal comprehensively and conclusively with every one of the allegations that they're making.
Mr. Nandlall, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. We are trying our best to keep everyone up to date here in Trinidad and Tobago as well with this situation. Thank you very much once more for taking the time to speak with us. Well, I mean, I am not Guyanese, but I want to use a Guyanese product, lima, called a sap me head, hearing all the things that are going on right now. I mean, when is this going to end in Guyana? But anyway, as